Good afternoon, Governor Hickenlooper. I'm Michael Pastilli. With me I have Stephanie and Victoria. All three of us, we are the mentors for the YES program for the International Dyslexia Association. We first would like to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to answer a couple questions that we have for you.
Sure.
And we also would like to tell you that this is going to be seen in front of a bunch of students from our YES program to just show them how a dyslexic person can be so successful in the real world.
Sure.
So my first question for you today is, can you tell me a little bit about growing up with your dyslexia?
Well, you know, back then when I was a kid, I don't want to make myself sound too old, but when I was a kid, people really didn't know what it was. And so I just know that in 3rd grade I had to go to speech therapy class because I couldn't say S's well enough, and I had stuff with like certain sounds I just couldn't say, so I just have to practice them again and again. You know, to be pulled out of class created a little bit of space. And then I was always, you know, frustrating people because I tested well, and yet I couldn't keep up with people, right? I couldn't keep up with the reading, I couldn't keep up with a lot of stuff, and yet I was really good at math and things like that. So, you know, we just knew that I was different. People didn't have a word like dyslexia, but they just, so I repeated, I did 7th grade twice, and that's when they didn't call it dyslexia, but they called it they thought I had a learning disorder, a reading disorder, I think is what they called it. And so then they had me do special reading and special stuff on the side. But it was, you know, it's just like anybody. If it's you, if you grew up with it, you don't think it's anything unusual. It's just what it is, right?
Agree. Totally agree with that. So my next question for you is, what was your biggest struggles in school?
You know, there are a couple of big struggles. One was, and I've always been a verbal person and like words and like talking to people and very extroverted. So I had a hard time keeping my mouth shut sometimes. So I would get into trouble by, I don't know, you know, being a smart aleck, saying things that, you know, trying to be funny and trying to make people like me, but oftentimes kind of pushing them away. So that was one problem. And then certainly as I got older and reading became more dense, right? More like history and stuff like that, I just couldn't keep up. And so by the time I got to college, you know, I couldn't take a history class in college. There was no way I was going to read all the stuff that you had to read. So I never took college history or sociology. But now once I graduate, now I can take like a month and a half to read a history book, and I relish it. You know, I take all the time I want, and I can really kind of, you know, read as deeply as I can experience it.
Perfect. So then my last question for you today is, what were some coping strategies you had for school?
Well, you know, I think like a lot of dyslexics, we overcompensate in other ways. And there's a wonderful book out. There's a guy named Malcolm Gladwell, who I know a little bit. So his new book is all about the incredible people that start out with dyslexia and for a variety of reasons become really good at how they get along with people, for instance. That's a classic case that people who are dyslexic have better social skills in a variety of reasons, all different kinds. I'm not sure how it works in your brain or scientifically, but it seems like a fact that, you know, I was teasing with my brother the other day, and so I have a son who's now 11 and doesn't show any signs of dyslexia or anything like that. And I was telling my brother, gee, that's too bad. God, if you just had one good learning disability like that, he would have compensated in these other ways. He would have turned out to be a much more successful kid, which I'm not sure that's true. I was just giving him a hard time. But, you know, I think everybody's unique in their own way, and we all try to adapt ourselves to our environment, the situation that we find ourselves in. You know, I think the key is that with the right support and the right teachers, pretty much anybody can do anything.
Totally agree.
Look at me, my God.
So my first question is, what strengths do you attribute to your dyslexia?
Well, it's hard to break apart one part. You know, if it's all you, it's hard to break apart how much did I get from my dyslexia. But I do know that, I mean, I learned pretty early on that I wasn't going to be an A student, right? So getting A's wasn't important to me, and I really focused on other things. So I focused on sports, I focused on my friends and trying to be a better friend. And I think that's, I guess you could say that, I mean, I've always been one of those people that has, I mean, I've got all my best friends from my whole life are still my best friends. I have this rich reservoir of relationships. I'm not sure I would have had that if I wasn't dyslexic.
So my next question is, how do those strengths help you as being a politician?
Well, I don't really think of myself as a politician. I mean, I never ran for student council president or anything like that. I think of myself as an entrepreneur. I started all these different businesses. I'm an entrepreneur on loan to public service. But I think the strengths, like loving people and being good at building relationships and really getting to know somebody, that's a lot of what, as an elected official, like a governor, part of my job is to build relationships with county commissioners and mayors and figure out ways that we can all work together and solve the state's problems. So I guess it's a direct outgrowth of those skills that I built in school, kind of as a balance for dyslexia.
And then what coping strategies and compensation skills do you use now that you're an adult?
Well, it's funny. So I'm in a position where I have to learn a lot of information. And yet all my staff knows that you can't give me, you got to get it down to a 1 and no more than 2 pages, because it just takes me too long to read it. So it makes it hard on my staff, because normally they turn in five-page memos on this issue, water purification systems or whatever. But they can't, I need it down to 1 page, really, to get it. So that's, I guess you call that a coping skill of one sort.
What advice or encouragement would you like to give to students with dyslexia?
Well, I think, and this has changed so much just in the last 10 or 15 years, but we clearly see now that not only is dyslexia not something to drag you down or hold you back, but in some ways it does allow people to develop other skills, expand aspects of their personality, and many of our most successful people turn out to have been dyslexics and have dyslexia. So, my advice would be, don't settle for less, right? If you can dream it or imagine it, go for it.
That's a great advice. And then, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, I mean, I think kids get the real opportunity to achieve their full potential. It's a wonderful thing.
All right. So we would like to thank you again for giving us the opportunity to interview you. You are such an inspiration to us and will be for so many other students with dyslexia. We would like to present you with this Yes Ambassadors t-shirt.
Oh, cool.
You are now an honorary Yes Ambassador.
Oh, I'm honored and proud. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.